Today's Q&A session is supported by Alan Hogg, USDA Community Program Specialist, and we have prepared a handful of questions that we think would be helpful for people to know. So the first question we have is, Alan, what is the difference between the loan and grant program?
Well, the process between the two different programs is basically the same. Same application materials. You go through the same red tape, unfortunately, to get the loan or the grant, or to get a combo of the two. The difference financially is essentially whether or not the entity can afford a loan or not. We would like to give everybody that comes to us grant money, but unfortunately, one, we don't have an exhaustive resource of grant funds, so we're kind of limited. And also, some folks that we deal with, maybe it's a very large project, and they need some loan funds to help kind of fill the gap on the funding. So we look at whether or not they can afford it financially, if they have the cash flow necessary to afford a loan payment. And sometimes, if not, then we try to throw some grant dollars on top of it. That's probably the simplest explanation I can give you on the difference there.
That works. Thank you so much. So the next question, we kind of briefly talked about it during the other presentation, but what is the difference between the construction and non-construction projects? And can you just name some more examples for both?
Yeah, we probably see a good variety between the two different options. Non-construction is going to be vehicle purchases, equipment purchases. A lot of our volunteer fire departments will maybe get a new fire truck or some, I can think of good terminology, the apparatus that they wear, the uniforms that they wear. We would consider that non-construction. A construction project would be if a local city needed to build a new police station or a new fire hall. That would definitely involve quite a bit of construction, and you could have a project that involved both. We've funded projects where there was a construction of a new building, and they also had some equipment components to that as well, where they wanted to build a building and maybe buy a new truck at the same time. That is possible too, but usually, more often than not, it's either one or the other.
Okay, sounds good. And then the next one, what is the maximum amount that the USDA grant program would award a community entity?
So our funding now, like I said, it's a little limited. We have to cap all of our grant applicants at this stage at $50,000. Now that's contingent, as some of the presentations you saw earlier, based on your area, who you're serving, and your grant eligibility. So even though we try to cap it at 50, doesn't mean we can give everybody 50,000. All those other metrics kind of have to play in, but that's usually where we max out at. Every once in a while, we'll get some new funding packages, some grants from our national office that will allow us to go over that $50,000 threshold. Right now, we don't have anything new, and we don't expect anything new in the next fiscal year. So for the time being, at least, we're going to have to cap everything at 50. Okay,
and then what is the maximum amount that the USDA loan program would award a community entity?
That answer is a little more open-ended. So our loan program has, for all practical purposes, an unlimited amount of funding available in our national office. We funded loans anywhere from 100,000 up to 75 million. We can go above that if we need to. I don't know that we'll do too many of those in the state of Tennessee, but it's possible. So the funding is there for loans. But if it does go over 25 million, it gets a little bit above our state approval authority. So we have to get our national office involved. That's nothing that our clients really have to deal with too much, other than maybe waiting a little bit longer to get a project approved. We're just going an extra layer up for approvals. So really, it's based on the project cost, the need, and their ability to repay it.
Okay, sounds good. And then I know the next question, you kind of talked about it already too, but just to give maybe more examples, can you give an example of a project where an entity has received both a grant and loan for the same project?
Sure. Probably the best example is we've had a volunteer fire department that needed to buy a new fire truck. And in today's economy, new fire trucks are extremely expensive. They're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 trucks, and they have to wait sometimes a year or longer to order it and to get it on site. And so in those cases, they need a loan and a grant both to be able to afford it. So we've done a few of those across the state. We'll put a $50,000 grant or close to it, and then they'll borrow the other 200,000 or 300,000 to go out and buy this new truck.
All righty, and then last but not least, can an entity find out if its non-construction or construction project is eligible for funding before filling out the grant and loan program application? If so, what is the best way to go about it?
Absolutely, and we highly recommend that. You can reach out to myself, our program director, Chris Hampton, Brandon Orr, any of the other area directors that were listed on that map that you saw earlier, that schematic that showed the different areas across the state. Reaching out to our staff is the best way to know whether or not you could potentially be eligible. We'd hate for folks to go through this entire process and then find out that they may not be eligible for our funding. So just having those conversations on the front end with our staff is the best way to get started.
Okay, can you think of anything else that you think you want to mention during the session?
I think these are great questions, and I think the rest, the folks on the call have handled everything extremely well. I can't think of anything else to add at this point.
Okay, then I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to join for the USDA online workshop. Please do not hesitate to contact us with any questions that might come up later. And as mentioned in the beginning, the latest recording will be available on USDAtab.org. So everything we've just said will be on the website for you to access at any given point.